Another stream. Day 8 of training camp just ended and I am back home. I'm going to be giving you guys the entire recap and then getting you guys the full 11 on 11 breakdown and answering all of your questions. Be sure to drop all of your questions in the chat and we will be back right after this.
Let's go get him. Let's go get him today, man. Let's go. Hey, double down 3. 1, 2, 3. Double down.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. We are back here. Day 8 of training camp just ended, and you know what it is. I'm back with my daily recap of practice. So I was there again today. It was a different kind of Friday, right? Yesterday was the rest day. You now have the ramp up coming off of the rest day. So in expectation, there was a little more running than throwing. However, there was still a good amount of passing. Nate Sudfeld threw 16 passes, Trey Lance threw 13, and Brock Purdy threw 7 passes. So a good amount of throwing overall. And what you saw was a lot of completions today. I'm going to be breaking everything down. I'll do it how I normally do it. Start with the 11 on 11s. Then I'll go down to the position by position breakdowns. And in between, I'm going to be answering all of your questions that you had for today. So be sure to drop all of your questions in the chat and we will get to them one by one after the 11 on 11 breakdown. So I'm going to do the play by play based on what I've written down in my notes. And then we will go ahead and answer all of your questions. All right. So to start it off, let's get right into it. Elijah Mitchell, just real quick. Elijah Mitchell got a lot of action today. I think this was the most action he's ever gotten in 49er training camp so far. So it's a good sign for the 49ers that Elijah Mitchell, he's bulked up and he's getting a lot of action with the first team offense. But starting it off, Elijah Mitchell started the day with a 3-yard carry up the middle. Fred Warner was there as well as I believe Fred Warner and Nick Bosa were there on the play. Spencer Burford had a good block. Unfortunately, defense collapsed, only a 3-yard play. To start off today, because no Javon Kinlaw, we had Charles Omenihu and Nick Bosa be the starters on the outside in 11 on 11s, that is, and then Kevin Givens and Alex Barrett as the starters on the inside. In walkthroughs, though, it was Bosa on the outside, Givens and Hyder on the inside, and then Samson Ebukam as the starter. So, following the 3-yard run from Elijah Mitchell, on the second play of day, Daniel Brunskill, who was starting with the ones today at center, fumbled the snap. So, Brunskill, he's been having snap issues. He fumbled that snap. On the third play, Elijah Mitchell ran had a 4-yard rush on an inside zone. Then on the fourth play, Jeff Wilson Jr. came in with the second team offense and had a 1 to 2 yard rush to the right side. He had to cut back, but did not cut and got a 1 to 2 yard gain. Then came the first pass of the day. Nate Sudfeld found Brandon Ayuk with great protection for a 10-yard pass. Trey Sermon then was in with the second team, had a 4-yard rush inside. This was one of Sermon's better rushes of the day. He didn't have a really that big of an exciting day, but Sermon had a powerful rush inside, which isn't really his game, but you saw a powerful rush from Trey Sermon on this play. He's more of a shifty guy, right? He's a guy who loves to cut, but this was more of a powerful run from Sermon, 4 yards. Brock Purdy then came in with the third team offense and hit a play action pass to Josh Hokett for 10 yards. Kamoko Toure was trailing Purdy, so a nice throw by Purdy, getting it out before the sack for 10 yards. Tyrion Davis-Price then got his first snap of the day. It was a pitch. Davis-Price tried to get to the edge, showcased some nice burst initially, but could not get to the edge. It was stuffed for no gain. Then Davis-Price came back with a 1-yard play on the inside run. He was with the third team. Not too much there, but Davis-Price, you'll see in a little bit, he had a great day overall today. Second best running back on the field on Thursday. Trey Lance then came back in, hit Ray McLeod for 25 yards, his best throw of the day. McLeod ran a stick China route, according to my guy Jordan Elliott, where he cut inside, and then Charvarius Ward bit, and then he turned back and went to the outside for his route. Great route by Ray McLeod on Charvarius Ward, that is, and got 10 yards after the play. So great overall play. McLeod, he's looking really shifty to start camp. One of the better receivers so far. Elijah Mitchell then got his next carry of the day, got about a 4-yard run to the left. Obviously, left means Trent Williams is there, Aaron Banks is there. Both of them had some nice blocks today in the run game as well as pass protection. On the 12th play of scrimmage, Jeff Wilson Jr. got his first carry with the ones, I believe, and it was a 2-yard rush to the right. Nate Sudfeld then came back, hit Juwan Jennings, one of Sudfeld's better throws of the day, for a 30-yard gain. Juwan Jennings was working against Ambry Thomas, who had soft coverage, which I don't really understand, given that Juwan Jennings isn't necessarily a fast receiver, so you don't beat him deep. He doesn't really beat you deep, but instead, it was soft coverage. Dante Johnson was there as well. Ambry Thomas was put in a couple of interesting positions today. What you see a lot from Ambry Thomas today is soft coverage with a safety to help, and it just did not work. Every single time that was the look from the 49ers defense, they targeted that situation, and it became a pass. 30-yard completion to Juwan Jennings here. Trey Sermon then came in and got a 4-yard rush to the right end. Let's see what I said. Sermon got a 4-yard rush to the right end. It was good good blocking, but he was a little slow initially, a little hesitant. That's something you see from Trey Sermon today a little bit. He's still trying to get the feel consistently. He had a good feel for plays last week, a little earlier this week in practice, but overall Trey Sermon was a little slower today in trying to he was a little more hesitant in trying to read kind of the field, which is something to look out for as we continue practice. Tyrion Davis-Price then came back in, got a 2-yard run right up the middle. He was with the second team. This was his first rep with the second team offense. Elijah Mitchell then came back, and this was the best play, or second best run of the day. The running game had initially struggled to break out for a play, but Elijah Mitchell, 12-yard rush to the outside zone. There was great blocks. It was to the right side. Great job by Spencer Burford and Mike McGlinchey, paving the way for Elijah Mitchell, who got the outside zone rush. He was really quick today. He looked explosive. Great day for Elijah Mitchell. This was one of his best runs. Then Trey Lance tried to throw for JaMycal Hasty. He was extremely covered by Azeez Al-Shire. Not really the best place to throw to, and the ball was overthrown. And if it was thrown on the money, it would have been an interception. He was that covered. So not really the best decision to throw it in that direction, but an incompletion there. There was great protection as well on the play. Trey Lance then hit George Kittle on a 5-yard throw to the flat. On the next play, Dre Greenlaw was close on the play, and the pressure came, so a good read by Lance to get it out quick. Sudfeld then came in with the second team offense, hit Ross Dwelley for a 20-yard catch. Dwelley's was one of his first catches of the entirety of training camp, so a good play there by Ross Dwelley. There was good protection on the play as well. Nate Sudfeld then threw a 5 to 7 yard flat throw to Elijah Mitchell, or the throw was to the flat to Elijah Mitchell, who gained 5 to 7 yards on the play. After a drop on today is Friday. After a drop on Wednesday's practice, Mitchell looked pretty good as well in the receiving game today. This was one of his catches. Sudfeld then went back to Juwan Jennings on the next play, hitting him for 25 yards, and it was a good throw. Very good throw to spiral it into a tight window. Tarvarius Moore was right there, and he laid the boom to Juwan Jennings, but Jennings held on to this play. Great throw, great catch by the duo of Sudfeld and Juwan Jennings. On the next play, Brock Purdy threw an incompletion to Troy Fumagalli. It was a 4-yard throw to the flat, but Purdy just missed him. It was a little too far in front, and overall, an incompletion on Fumagalli with the defender trailing. Brock Purdy then hit Tay Martin for a 12-yard throw. It was a good route on Tariq Castro Fields, who has flashed very much early in training camp. Good route on Tariq Castro Fields and a connection between Purdy and Tay Martin, who has also been one of the guys who's flashed in the receiving room very early. Continuing forward, Jordan Mason got his first carry of the day on the 24th play of scrimmage, a 2-yard HB draw. This HB draw has been drawn up for Tyrion Davis-Price on several occasions, and Davis-Price with that initial burst has been able to do it. Jordan Mason's very interesting. It's not like he doesn't have a great burst, right? He still has solid burst given his speed, but he doesn't have the Davis Price burst, and instead relies on physicality and quickness overall. And so this play only got 2 yards, although Mason ran it with physicality on this run. Trey Lance then came back in, found Elijah Mitchell over the middle for 7 yards. Trent Williams made a nice block on the play on Alex Barrett. So did Spencer Burford. Those two were the main guys. Spencer Burford held up. Kerry Hyder eventually got through, but it was way too late. Great blocking overall on the play. Then Trey Lance threw an incompletion to Malik Turner. Malik Turner, this was one of his poor plays of the day. He had a pretty solid day, but Malik Turner, this ball just went right through his hands. The one drop of the day, an incompletion from Lance to Malik Turner. Then Lance tried to throw for Deebo Samuel. It was a 45-yard pass down the field. This ball was about 10 yards overthrown. Lance hasn't necessarily really had much touch recently with his deep throws. His deep throws have taken a little bit of a hit over the last 2 practices, but Lance overall has overall he's had good deep accuracy, but when it's like when the player is covered heavily, Lance has failed to kind of put it right on the money, which is something interesting. I'm not putting anything against him, but that is one thing about Trey Lance. This one, Deebo Samuel just failed to separate from from Emmanuel Mosley. He has failed to separate really in one-on-one sometimes, and in on these plays overall. So that's something to watch with Deebo Samuel. He hasn't been the best separator in the world, but he's not a bad separator by any means. Yet he has failed to separate so far in the initial part of training camp. Moving forward, Nate Sudfeld then came in with the second team, hit Danny Gray for a screen pass, but Gray was immediately stopped at the line of scrimmage. The linebackers got there quickly, and this is a great part about the linebackers. They're able to detect screens, and you saw this last year during the Seattle game with this starting linebacker core. They were able to just stop the short game and the screen game. You can't really you can't really run after the catch on the secondary and on this linebacker unit. So that is an interesting part because not Trey Lance, because other teams might try and avoid this defensive line by forcing the 49ers to tackle, but they've been able to, get to that line of scrimmage quick, and they've been able to make plays. So that is a positive note about the linebackers. Sudfeld then came back on the next play, hit Troy Fumagalli for about a 15 to 20-yard catch. It could have been seen as a sack. Jordan Willis was in the backfield working against left tackle Sam Schluter. George Odom was in coverage, but Fumagalli made the play. Then Nate Sudfeld hit Brandon Ayuk, Ambry Thomas. This was one of those Ambry Thomas soft coverage plays with Dante Johnson there too. It just doesn't work. Brandon Ayuk got 20 yards on the play. At the end of the first scrimmage, Trey Lance was 3 of 6, had 1 drop. Nate Sudfeld was 8 of 8, and then Brock Purdy was 2 of 3. So a strong start for the 49ers offense. Run game had its ups and downs, but a good run from Elijah Mitchell and a couple of overall good runs for the starting offense. And that was the end of the first scrimmage there. Let me just get this bot out of the chat, and then we'll start on with the second scrimmage. All right, moving on to the second scrimmage, Elijah Mitchell had his best run of the day on the first play of scrimmage. Trent Williams and Aaron Banks on the left side created a huge running lane, great blocks by both of them, and then George Kittle as well on the left side, and Elijah Mitchell just took off. You could have seen this as a touchdown. They were at the 20-yard line. Elijah Mitchell, he stopped it around the 50-yard line, but overall, I don't know if Jimmy Ward would have caught him. This might have been a touchdown, and so this is one of your big plays of the day. Elijah Mitchell, if you want to see it like that, an 80-yard touchdown. And so that was one of the best runs. Trey Lance then followed it with a scramble of his own. He rushed for 10 yards, sensed the coverage, sensed the pressure, and just took off for 10 yards up the middle. Good play by Lance. The 49ers then on this next play had a very interesting look. You know that that Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce shovel pass where they fake it to the running back and then shovel it to the tight end? They did it against the Bills, I believe, for the last touchdown of the day. The 49ers ran that play. Trey Lance was the quarterback. Deebo Samuel was the running back. And then George Kittle, obviously, being the tight end. They faked the handoff to Deebo Samuel, pitched it to George Kittle, who was the tight end, but they didn't get any yards on the play. It was a 0-yard play. Trey Lance then found Deebo Samuel for a 15-yard catch. This was I believe, their only completion of the day. They have failed to kind of consistently maintain a rapport, but they were seen working after practice, and this was one of their catches of the day. Deebo Samuel found kind of like the soft spot in the defense for 15 yards. Hufanga was closing in. Lance fired it. Good pocket, good throw, good catch, 15 yards. Nate Sudfeld then came in, hit Malik Turner for an 8-yard catch, bouncing off his drop. I didn't catch the next play of scrimmage, I'll be honest, so we'll skip that. But Nate Sudfeld then hit Raymond McLeod on the next play for a screen pass. McLeod got 3 yards on the play and followed it with a 4-yard pass to Tyler Croft. So a lot of shorter passes as well for Nate Sudfeld overall. Sudfeld then on his next play, remember Sudfeld is 4 of 4 in the second half of scrimmage at this point. On the next play, he hit Raymond McLeod with tight coverage there, but a great catch from McLeod for 10 yards. A good throw by Sudfeld as well. Tyrion Davis-Price then came back in and got a 5-yard gain, but it was a really good game because he had a nice cut back to the middle, which allowed him to get the extra 3 yards on the play. Good play and good read by Tyrion Davis-Price. Purdy then threw a screen, and it was incomplete to Tyrion Davis-Price. Drake Jackson was there on the play. It was just too crowded, and Purdy, he should have thrown it immediately, waited too long, and the defense just collapsed on the play. Tyrion Davis-Price then got another carry, had a power rush pretty much for 5 to 7 yards. He had great power on the play, just lowering his shoulder. He is going to be a physical running back this year, and it's going to be hard to take him down. A nice 5 to 7 yard gain today. And while the vision is sometimes lacked in training camp, today was not one of those days. He had a good day in training camp, this being the second good run from TDP. Purdy then hit Keyshawn Johnson on a 4-yard play. The ball was thrown behind Keyshawn Johnson, but Johnson reached over his back shoulder and was able to catch it on a slant route going to the left side. Lance then came back in with the first team offense and hit Kyle Juszczyk on a 5-yard play. It was a quick play to the flat. Lance just made a quick throw because of the defense, I believe, sent a blitz on the play. So it was just a quick throw to the flat, 5 yards overall on the play. Davis-Price then, after those strong runs, got his first carry with the first team offense. He had a 2-yard rush on his first carry with the first team offense, which is notable given the uncertainty right now of running back 2. Trey Sermon then came back in with the first team offense and had a 2-yard gain, and then the second team offense came in. Nate Sudfeld on the next play. It was a bootleg to the left, and Sudfeld just found a lane and took off for 10 yards. So a lot of rushing there from the quarterbacks. Elijah Mitchell then came back in. This was the first team offense. He had a 1-yard run. And then Trey Lance found George Kittle for a first down. It was a third down play. Kittle just got right past the chains. Emmanuel Mosley was there in coverage. And Lance fired, 4-yard play, first down. Then TDP had one of his better plays of the day. It was an 8-yard rush. He weaved in and out of the defense. He was first rushing to the right, cut to the left, and then a defender was there on the second level, cut back to the right. Overall got 8 yards. A great play by TDP. Jordan Mason then came back in. This was, I believe, with the second team. He got a 2-yard rush on the play. Then Elijah Mitchell came back. Or that play was with the third team. Elijah Mitchell came back, and he was stopped for a tackle for loss. Kevin Givens had just gotten through the gap, and it was probably a loss of 2 yards on that play. Trey Lance then got another throw off. He hit George Kittle for 12 yards for a first down. The pressure was closing. This was a long third down play after the Elijah Mitchell tackle for loss. Lance continued to move the chains. The 49ers were able to get a couple of first downs on third downs today. Third down conversions were especially pretty helpful. Trey Lance then tried to hit Jeff Wilson Jr. This was Lance's worst throw of the day, and it was just an overthrow. Lance had a play action play to the left, but as he faced the left side, Jimmy Ward was right there closing in. He then turned around, went to the right side, tried to hit Jeff Wilson Jr. in the flat for a 3 to 5 yard pass, and just overthrew it. So That was one of his worst throws of the day, but overall, not too big of a harm. And like I said, he ended up finishing 9 of 13. Jeff Wilson Jr. then got a 2-yard rush before contact, bounced off it. Dre Greenlaw was the first there, and then continued rushing for a short game after that. Lance then found Jeff Wilson Jr. for 4 yards on a third down. It was a throw to the right flat. Lance had good protection on the play, couldn't find anybody, found Jeff Wilson Jr. as that kind of check down-ish type of throw. However, it was well short of the chains, and it was a 4th down. Then came back the second team offense. Tyrion Davis-Price got a 2-yard rush. Davis-Price, this was Davis-Price's one of the plays where he kind of lacked a little bit of vision in that he should have cut left. This play was up the middle. He should have cut left, cut just a second too late, and was stuffed for 2 yards. If he had cut left, it could have been a 7-8 yard gain. Sudfeld then found Austin Mack, who had 2 drops in the one-on-one session. More on him in a minute. But he caught this ball for 13 yards. It was a fake handoff, and he hit Sudfeld hit Mack for a 13-yard gain. Then Sudfeld on the next play, it was good protection overall, but he threw a pass right to the hands of Charles Omenihu. That was batted down for an incompletion. Not really a great throw from Sudfeld there. Sermon then had a 2-yard rush to the right. Nothing too special there before Sudfeld found Austin Mack again for 5 yards in close coverage. Mack made the catch. Sudfeld then tried to hit Ray McLeod. This was a deep pass about 40-45 yards down the field near the end zone. Sudfeld overthrew him, but Tariq Castro-Fields was the story of that play. Just lock in coverage with Ray McLeod. That's why Sudfeld couldn't probably throw a more accurate ball. It was great coverage on the play. Jordan Mason then had his best rush of the day, a 4 to 5 yard rush to the right side. It was on the third team, but I've spoken on how Jordan Mason has been so far. Good 4 to 5 yard rush on this side. Brock Purdy then hit Troy Fumagalli for a 5-yard gain. So Purdy just he was looking down over the middle. Fumagalli caught it, 5-yard gain overall. Then Purdy on the last play of scrimmage was picked off by Segun Olubi. He had thrown a pass to Tanner Hudson, the tight end. It didn't really have much zip on it, and so as Hudson looked to catch it, Segun Olubi literally just ripped it away from him and intercepted the pass. Kimoko Toure had beaten Alfredo Gutierrez on the play, kind of rushing Purdy, but that was the thing. Still, good play by Olubi. Hudson, hopefully, he should have caught on that play, but that was it. So overall in the stats, Trey Lance, 9 of 13. He had 1 drop. Sudfeld, 14 of 16. And then Purdy, 4 of 7 with the interception. You can count it as a drop if you want. Now, I'll get to your questions. And then, like I said, with what I was talking about later on, going through the position-by-position breakdowns. So coming up to the top, got to say thank you all in. Tonmunch, 27. Got to say a shout-out to Jerome Davis, and then 916 thank you for tuning in, as well as 49er Laker for life. Kali Young said the offense was killing it today. This was one of the better offensive days overall. And while it wasn't many splash plays, a lot of completions and a lot of moving the chains. You had a couple of first downs, and the defense still was the better the group, right? The defense still was locked down. You didn't really see that 40-yard completion. The second team defense maybe got cooked, or second and third team defense got cooked a little bit, right? Because they were just intertwining players. But the first team defense still held up, especially deep in coverage. Emmanuel Mosley, obviously on Deebo Samuel, with Travarius Ward, primarily on Brandon Ayuk. Ayuk continued to dominate. It's just he had most of his action kind of towards the second team offense rather than the first team offense. Mariah, shout out to you. Thank you so much for tuning in as well. Stanley Thomas, thank you for tuning in. And here is our first question of the day from Niners Warriors. When the running backs get tackled, are they getting wrapped up by the D and the whistle blows, or are they going down to the ground? Also, how hard are they hitting Mitchell and the running back? So it's also interesting, right? When you talk about the running backs, it's not like they're getting tackled. They don't get tackled. It was very rare that you saw a tackle. I think you only saw 2 tackles on the day overall. Instead, they get wrapped up. There isn't a whistle blown. You just assume the play is dead. So sometimes you can see the runners being physical and continuing to push through while being wrapped around. You can see the physicality through there of the running backs. Other times, the running back just continues to play overall, but I just mark it dead after the first contact. So remember, some of these yardages are after the first contact. That's why it's so hard to evaluate running backs in training camp, because tackling isn't happening. So you don't know whether whether that play would have been extended or not. So that's the one thing about the running backs. Again, it is somewhat hard to evaluate. So I'm just going based on what I see and how the play essentially goes, and could there have been a different read by the running back on that play. Sir Stanley Thomas says they need to use Dwelly more often. He was the tight end too. I was looking at rotations today in 11 on 11s. He was the guy behind George Kittle, and then they kind of exchanged everybody else in there as well. But I'd seen reps where he is tight end too. It's just the quarterbacks haven't necessarily targeted tight ends much. Fumagalli got a couple of catches today. I know Hudson got in the action today and yesterday, or today and Wednesday. But overall, Dwelly especially just hasn't been targeted that much. Sentinel says, I'm not surprised. Debo's been missing opportunities to trade with Trey Lance this entire offseason. Now he's playing pudgy and playing catch up with the rest of the team. It's just he's just getting more acclimated to it. He looks just a little out of shape. I'm not going to say too much on it because it is early, but overall, Debo Samuel, he's just trying to get his connection down with Trey Lance right now, which is very inconsistent at the moment. Got to give a shout out to Raphael 562 Niners. Thank you for tuning in. Kurt the Chameleon says, Drake Jackson's going to be a damn beast, isn't he? Well, the 49ers are just trying to get him in there, right? He got some reps with the ones today. And also, I have to preface it with Nick Bosa did not play in team drills, or he started and probably played like 3 to 5 reps. He didn't play much at all in team drills. Javon Kinlaw is not out there, nor is Ark Armstead, right, who's injured. So this was, in a way, the backup defensive line because Kevin Givens was there, Kerry Hyder was there, O'Menihue was there, and so even Ebukam didn't play too much today. So it is, again, like that's kind of how some of these other guys get bumped up the depth chart. But Jackson has been a guy who's impressed so far in camp. How did Spencer Burford do today? Spencer Burford was actually very good. Him and Aaron Banks both had a very good day in pass protection. I said no sacks. I tweeted this, no sacks at all from the first team offensive line. That was good. And Burford and Banks especially held up in pass protection overall. It was a good day for the offensive line. All right, continuing. Niners Warriors here asks a question. How many of these passes today were play action? 10%, 20%? How about overall for camp? We actually haven't seen too many play action passes. I think that's a part of the install where they haven't necessarily tried to utilize it as much because they know that that's a strength, and they know, like, obviously a Kyle Shanahan offense has been like so heavy on play action. You don't see too much play action, although I'd say probably like the highest play action numbers in the NFL would be 33%. The 49ers did dial down play action a little bit last year. I'd probably say about 16%, maybe 1/6 of the plays. There were 40. There were maybe, how many passes did I say? Maybe 30, 35 passes. And maybe out of those, there was, 36 passes today. Out of those 36, I'd probably say 6 were play action. Although by saying that, let me preface it. I do actually expect a good amount of play action. It has worked a little bit, and especially with Lance's ability as a thrower, I think that is something to expect because he has the ability to stretch the ball downfield. So if you go for the running back, then Lance can hold it, and Lance can obviously air it out. But if you go for the quarterback, you just hand it off. That type of thing. How are the RPO plays that I've seen with Trey Lance? This is a very good question. I talked about this earlier last week. This has been up and down. It's been inconsistent. There have been times where Trey Lance has made the right read perfectly, and it's gone for a great gain. One specific play was last week, or sorry, not last week, last practice on Wednesday. Trey Lance and Elijah Mitchell had an RPO play. Lance eyed that the linebacker was going to tag along with Mitchell, faked the handoff, and rushed up the gut for 6 or 7 yards. It was a good read by Lance, but there are some times also where Lance should have handed the ball off and takes off and then rushes horizontally because the defender is there rather than rushing downfield. So there are some plays like that. However, I think while the inconsistency is there, you can understand why it works when it works. 49ers Escalada Empire chapter, thank you for tuning in as well. Oh man, these bots, bro. But another bot. All right, we got that one out here. We've got a question here from 916ers. Was Kyle allowing the offense to drive up and down the field, and are the quarterbacks still splitting reps? So Kyle allowing the offense to drive up and down. So what their move the chain periods are very interesting. They don't actually move up and down the field, really. They just move the first down, second down, third down, fourth down. They just have a like something to show that. So you can count it as move the chain. You don't necessarily have to. Um, so to for if we're talking literally, did he allow the offense to drive up and down the field? No. But they did have these periods where they were going first down, second down, third down, fourth down, and the install was also applying to that because the third down plays, if it was short, they were just looking for a quick out to try and get the first down, and then some of the plays longer as well, you were looking down the field. So that's the first part of your question of the QB splitting reps. The quarterbacks always split reps in training camp. You see equal amount of reps for the ones, the twos, and the threes. And it's not only because of the quarterbacks. You want to see everybody else as well. The second string running back, the third string running back, the second string O line, the third string O line. So you just place them in groups. Each kind of gets a third of the reps. Or actually, third team doesn't get too many, but first and second team gets a good amount. Justin E says, have they had any Jordan Mason run any wheel routes or primarily targets in the flat? This is a good question because of today. Jordan Mason actually went out wide and ran a go route today. And he probably did have a step on his defender. I think it was a linebacker. I forget who it was, but Purdy just didn't throw it that way. And if Purdy had probably thrown the pass, it would have been picked off just because it would have taken too long to get there. Mason has run routes. I know he's run a comeback route. I know they've had him out wide at times. I haven't necessarily seen too many wheel routes specifically, but it hasn't just been targets in the flat. He's run a couple of actual routes that have gotten him passes. How many screens or backfield passes to the running backs have they been calling when Trey was in for the week? When running back performed, what running back performed his best with their hand speed? Okay, so it's talking about screens and backfield passes. To the running back specifically, not too much. They've probably called 3 or 4 overall screen passes to running backs. And this is when Trey is in. Maybe 2 to 3 screens with running back so far. They've thrown wide receiver screens. I know McLeod caught one today. I know they've had jet sweeps as well. Danny Gray had a jet sweep. McLeod as well had a jet sweep a couple of days ago. They haven't necessarily had many running back screens, a couple more receiver screens. Debo had a receiver screen on Tuesday as well. So that's the thing. And then what running back performed the best? Elijah Mitchell was a clear-cut running back one today. He was the best running back by far. Tyree and Davis Price overall was running back number 2 in terms of like who performed the best in my eyes today. Although keep in mind that it was primarily against second and third team defense as opposed to the first team defense. Let's see. Niner Gang Podcast. Dion, thank you for tuning in, man. And please debo that like button, just as he says, keep the numbers up. Thank you guys so much, honestly, for tuning in. This has been a blessing the last couple of days to be able to share this all with you. So yeah, be sure to subscribe. Be sure to keep up with the content and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on the streams. Ronnie Montoya asked, how's Jeff Wilson doing? Jeff Wilson had his best practice on Wednesday. On Wednesday he had an undisclosed injury, missed a couple of days of team drills, and then was back in the fold on Monday. And surprisingly was back with the first team after looking slower and less explosive last week. Back with the first team and made a couple of good reads. He has good vision so far. His actual traits might not be there as much as years past, especially prior to his injury last year. But he has the vision and he has the cutting ability, so that might be a thing. I think he's in the mix for running back 4 right now. Although he also has been taking first team reps more than Tyrion Davis Price. He's taken first team reps. It's been him and Sermon splitting the first team reps opposite of Elijah Mitchell. Is Jimmy G the third string? Jimmy G does not practice. He has been on his own in a throwing program, and so that's kind of a thing. Jimmy G is like he's recovering from injury, right? He's cleared. He's been throwing fine, so that's another thing. All right, I'll get to these last three questions, then I'll go position by position breakdown, and then get to your questions as well after that. So if you guys have questions, be sure to drop all your questions in the chat, and then I'll get to them at the end. We've got Bay Area Baller here saying, why doesn't Diamador Lenore get reps in the slot? Is there a chance Jimmy Ward is our primary slot cornerback in the nickel? This is actually a very interesting question. Diamador Lenore isn't getting reps in the slot. Why? I can't tell you, but I can tell you that he's played very well on the outside. He's been the third best cornerback in training camp for the 49ers, behind Charvarius Ward and behind Emmanuel Mosley. So maybe you want your top three guys to get reps in the slot, but Demo has been playing fine on the outside. I don't see right now a reason to move him in the slot because of his comfortability for the outside. And so that is that. Is there a chance Jimmy Ward is our primary slot corner in nickel? I would not be surprised if this is the case. I said this on Grant's show yesterday. For the last 2 years, here are Jimmy Ward's splits. He's had about 400 snaps over the top, meaning as a high safety, as a box safety, he's had 200 snaps in each of the last 2 years, and then as a nickel, he's had 200 snaps in each of the last 2 years. I think that 200 snap count is going to go up because I don't think guys like Darquez Dennard right now can cover Jimmy. Not Jimmy Ward. I don't think guys like Darquez Dennard can cover Cooper Kupp. You need somebody to be able to cover that slot guy. And I think in big matchups like that, Jimmy Ward is going to be relied on a lot more. I would not be surprised. And the other thing, the 49ers have been experimenting with packages. They've been seeing, like, as surprising as it is, you've seen Talanoa Hufanga run in single high at times. And then you swap them. You've seen Ward obviously run in single high, but you've also seen Ward play a lot near the line of scrimmage, be it in slot or be it in the box. So that is something to monitor. And that might even impact Tarvarius Moore's playing time because he's the better deep end safety due to his athleticism. So you might see 3 safety sets. You might see that kind of thing. That is a good question, and I think that Jimmy Ward could be in for a role that has been higher than his years past in the slot at least. Jack Hammer said that the first team only got 1 first down during move the ball session. What is their Achilles heel? Long third downs, penalties, poor blocking, play calling. Honestly, today I think it was the run game. So it is interesting because the move the ball session, it's like hard to kind of like signify whether this is it or that is it. But they did go first, second, third down, and then got a couple of first downs like that. But I honestly think it's the run game leading to a little longer third downs because right now the running backs are still trying to get a feel of it. Trey Sermon had a bit of a quieter day today. And overall, the running game is just trying to get a feel for like the inside run specifically, just trying to get a feel for it and trying to get their vision up because it was a lot of shorter runs initially. The run game looked good with Mitchell and Ty Davis Price, but outside of that, there were a lot of shorter runs today. And so that prolongs third down plays. And sometimes you just got to get the ball out quick, which leads to plays that end up, behind the chains. So it's a fourth down play or something like that. I actually thought, though, that the 49ers were pretty good on third down today, passing the ball wise. All right. I'm going to continue on with the position by position breakdowns. Everybody who has a question, drop all your questions in the chat, and then I will get to them at the end of the position by position breakdowns. So we got to start with the most important position on the field, obviously, and that's quarterbacks, right? The quarterbacks have been a subject of controversy in a way, in that a lot of people have said, oh, Lance has struggled a lot. Sudfeld has struggled at times. Purdy has struggled at times and things like that, right? Because of completion percentage. And I've already disputed completion percentage as a statistic over, oh my God, man, these bots are about to put me to sleep. No, I'm kidding. But continuing on with the quarterbacks, Trey Lance today had one of his stronger days. I don't think it was his strongest day. There was a day, I believe it was Saturday, that he went 8 of 15 overall. And Lance, on that day, he had 2 drops. And the reason was Lance was stretching to all portions of the field. He was able to hit deep as well as intermediate and short. And so that, in my opinion, was his best day. But he had one of his better days. He was 9 of 13 today, and he had 1 drop as well from Malik Turner. So in overall, 3 incompletions. One of those incompletions was deep to Deebo Samuel, an overthrow of 10 yards, but Samuel was just way too closely covered. where if the ball was on target, I don't know if he was going to be able to make a play on it because he was just failing to separate against Emmanuel Mosley. The second one was a poor throw. He missed Jeff Wilson Jr. in the, like I mentioned, off the play action where he saw Jimmy Ward to his left, set his feet to his right side, and threw to Jeff Wilson Jr. and just aired it, just kind of sailed the ball, and it went out of bounds. Incompletion there. And then the third incompletion, I will pull it up right now. Third incompletion from Trey Lance was, one sec, guys. Oh, the third incompletion was the one to Jermichael Hasty. It was a 20-yard ball across the right sideline. Hasty was running a running back a wheel route pretty much, but he was specific. He was just tightly covered by Azeez Shire, and Azeez Shire had inside leverage. Lance tried to throw it, but it was another overthrow, and it was a good that was it was an overthrow because it would have been a 50-50 ball, and that probably would have gone to the defense. So that is a thing. Azeez Shire, good defense there. But those were the three incompletions. Overall, when you talk about Trey Lance's performance, you saw a ton of short passes today. Trey Lance had 13 throws, like I said. Of those 13, only 5 were above 10 yards down the field. And so 8 of those throws were below 10 yards, 10 yards in terms of like air yards, I mean. And a couple of those 5-yard throws, or sorry, a couple of those 5 throws were like 12 yards and things like that. So you didn't necessarily see too many big throws from Trey Lance today, but he was completing the shorter throws. He had a couple of nice throws, but again, a lot of the throws were a little bit of an easier throw where he kind of got it out quick, got it out to the flat, got it out over the middle, got it out, within 10 yards. So that was the thing about Trey Lance's game. Nate Sudfeld, on the other hand, had his best day of training camp by far, 14 to 16 today, and it's not even about the completion percentage. It's about the variety of throws that he made. He had continuously struggled deep with his passing so far. He has continuously just been inaccurate when trying to throw deep, and it's not like he doesn't have the arm strength necessarily. I think the arm strength honestly is fine. It's just he hasn't been completing the passes because they've been off target, mostly overthrows when you talk about it to open receivers and things like that. But Sudfeld today had a pretty strong day. He completed several passes in the 20 to 30-yard range. And his one incompletion that was deep in a way that I can remember was on a pass to Ray-Ray McCloud where he was just very, very well covered by Tariq Castro Fields. So it was more so a great play by the defense than a poor throw by the offense. And Nate Sudfeld, he had a good day. And I mean, it's not too big of a deal, right? It's the second team defense that you're going up against. And sometimes even the rotate in third stringers into that defense. So it's not too big of a deal, but it is a nice sign because not only did the first team offense move it, the second team offense moved it as well. Purdy was all right, 4 of 7, not too much to talk about there. It is interesting that the 49ers worked out quarterback James Morgan. They might sign him, and I don't know what that means for a guy like Brock Purdy. I don't think that he'll get cut right now just because he was a 7th-round pick. He has a tiny bit of guaranteed money tied to his name for this year, but who knows, right? Why are they? I don't really see the need for a 4th quarterback. I think it's better to get these 3 reps, but who knows? Maybe they see something in James Morgan over Brock Purdy, because when I was watching his watching his workout today, because they worked him out after practice, Morgan looks taller than Purdy. He looks more like an NFL quarterback in terms of his size and build than Brock Purdy. Continuing forward real quick, I see a chat about Willie Snead. Let me just real quick see if I can confirm that Willie Snead got signed by the 49ers. I am not exactly let's see. Willie Snead to the 49ers. That was interesting. He looked fine today. He actually looked pretty good coming out of breaks and stuff like that. And he is. Oh, Willie Snead is coming to the 49ers. Okay. Interesting signing. The reason is they cut Taysier Mack, the wide receiver out of Pittsburgh, the other day. And the 49ers had 2 extra roster spots because Jordan Matthews went on IR, and then they cut Taysier Mack. So they had 2 extra roster spots. One of them now is going to Willie Snead, who will be a backup receiver. I personally don't really care for the signing too much because we have so much depth at the receiver position already with guys like Malik Turner, Tay Martin, Austin Mack, Keyshawn Johnson, Marcus Johnson, and things like that. But Marcus Johnson did go into concussion protocol. So let me go ahead and continue now with the quarterback play. The last thing I want to say about the quarterbacks and Trey Lance. Trey Lance has recently struggled with his deep ball accuracy. That's been one thing. You see a lot of these clips. They're a bunch of one-on-one plays. They're not actual scrimmage plays where there's a live defense. It's only one player going against it. And while Lance has been able to hit receivers without tight coverage, he hasn't been able to hit receivers when there is pretty good coverage on the play, recently at least. And so that's taken a dipping into his deep accuracy. I wonder whether he can fix that a little more because he is more refined deep than over the middle. And if he struggles continuously deep, at least early, I wonder where the 49ers are going to move their offense if it's not just a bunch of short passes. So that is the one thing I want to see from Trey Lance is can he continue to throw the ball well deep and can he hit in tight windows at times? Because he has before. It's not like he can't. It's just he's been inconsistent in that kind of part. Again, 8 days of training camp only. Who cares right now? But that is something to monitor going forward. Let's move on to the next position group. That's the running backs. So over the running back, like the running back group and the running back rotation has been very interesting, right? You've seen Tyrion Davis-Price sometimes eclipse other guys on the depth chart, but you also seen Trey Sermon eclipse guys on the depth chart as well. And so those guys are kind of battling for RB2. And then in comes Jeff Wilson off his undisclosed injury, and he gets first team snaps. So there are three guys kind of, in my opinion, battling for that spot right now. And today was Tyrion Davis-Price's day. He didn't really get much run with the ones. It was mainly Mitchell, and then Wilson and Sermon got the rest of the run with the ones. But Mitchell looked the best back by far today. Mitchell looks like the clear-cut running back one in this offense. And it's good because the 49ers are going to need Elijah Mitchell a lot this year. With the inconsistency that they have at running back, and especially because they like to run with the hot hand, that's something you've seen from a Shanahan offense. Mitchell is going to be the hot hand more so than not. So I think Mitchell is going to get a good amount of run this year, probably close to 12 carries a game at least. He will probably get injured at some point. That's just football. But the 49ers are kind of going to need Elijah Mitchell early because he's the one right now, in my opinion, with that type of speed. Deebo Samuel has that speed, but he kind of has to get a little more in shape to kind of reclaim it. He's been explosive at times, but he needs to be a little more consistent with that. And overall, Mitchell has been the fastest running back on this team, and I don't think it's really too close so far. Davis-Price was the second best running back on the field today. Davis-Price, he looked good in his cuts. That's the main thing. His vision had struggled at times last week. He had really, like, I know I was talking with some of the other guys, and there were two plays that stood out. First of all, Davis-Price dropped a pitch last week that I talked about, and then Davis-Price ran into his own player on a block that I talked about. But Davis-Price's vision was good today. There were several plays where his cutting ability was showcased because he had good vision, and he made the right read, getting 5 to 7 yards on some plays. And so he runs with power, and he was able to run with the burst that he currently has. He might not have enough burst to consistently get to the edge. That's the one thing. But if he can run with the power that he has and the burst that he has in the inside zone game, as well as continue to develop that vision and his cutting ability, I think Davis-Price can be a good running back in this offense. The only thing is, how will he play against the ones? He's been playing against the backups as well, and so the other guys might be struggling a little more, but they're playing more against top-level defenses as compared to Davis-Price. Trey Sermon had a bit of a quiet day today. When you talk about Trey Sermon, real quick. All right, we good. When we talk about Trey Sermon, Sermon is a guy who is fully dependent on his vision, right? Because what does vision correlate with? Cutting ability. What is Sermon's best trait? His ability to cut, his ability to be fluid with his cuts and move downfield. However, when that vision sometimes is questionable, then the cutting ability comes into play, and you don't necessarily trust yourself as much and trust your instinct as much. And Sermon wasn't really that great today. He had a bit of a quiet day. He had a couple of runs that were good. I pointed out the run of 4 yards where he exhibited power, which hadn't necessarily been a big part of his game. And he also had a play where he cut nice as well and moved downfield for a couple of yards. But overall, Trey Sermon is a guy who has been up and down. He was more up earlier in the week, a bit of a down day today in terms of quietness compared to Tyron Davis Price. I still think that Trey Sermon has a good grip to be running back 2 overall because he's been getting running back 2 carries. And Jeff Wilson Jr., I don't currently know what his future is with this team, but that is a thing. We talk about Jeff Wilson Jr. right now. Wilson Jr. again got a couple of first team snaps. He had a good run today. I remember one good run where he cut to the right side and was able to go for probably about 5 yards. But overall, Jeff Wilson Jr., like I said, it's not like he's been a bad running back. It's just currently he seems to lack the explosiveness and true speed that he had prior to his injury. And so right now, his best asset might be his receiving talent. And I think right now the 49ers have a better running back in receiving talent in Jordan Mason, which has been proved both in 11 on 11s and at times in one-on-ones as well. I want to see Mason win a couple more one-on-ones, but that was the case with the running backs. Hasty and Mason got very little run today, especially Hasty. He didn't really get many carries, if any at all. And then Jordan Mason only got 2 carries today. We'll see if either of them can continue to emerge, specifically Mason over Jeff Wilson Jr. Because if we were going to talk about the top 4 running backs right now, it would be Elijah Mitchell clearly, then it would be Sermon and TDP, and then it'd probably be Jeff Wilson Jr. if we're talking about the top 4 running backs based on today's depth chart. So Mason might be on the outside looking in, but I still think Mason's got a good shot just because he looks the part of an NFL level running back, and he is very talented, not only as a rusher, but as a receiver, while also fitting the 49ers mold. Moving on to the wide receiver group. So let's get into it. And real quick, as I said, guys, be sure to hit the like button. Be sure to subscribe to this channel as well as the 49ers RedZone channel. That's my podcast channel where I host a podcast every day with every week with Marco Martinez. We talk a bunch, so be sure to hit the like and subscribe button to this channel, and then go ahead and follow the 49ers RedZone podcast channel as well, where we're posting a lot of content. And so again, stay tuned. A lot of coverage coming on, and let's get to these wide receivers. Water. All right, starting off with the wide receivers, Brandon Ayuk, he is that guy. He continues to win. If we talk about one-on-one routes today, Ayuk doesn't lose one-on-ones. If we're being honest, Ayuk just can't lose one-on-ones. First play of the day, Ayuk beat Emmanuel Mosley. It was a deep route. Mosley was close in coverage. He jumped early. Ayuk made the jumping catch. It was essentially a touchdown. Then Ayuk beat Diamond Lenore on a really good route. And then Ayuk beat Quantrez Knight just easily. He just beat him, burned him with deep speed. And Knight was like a couple, maybe 5-10 steps behind, and easy touchdown there for Brandon Ayuk. So great day overall for Brandon Ayuk. When you talk about the other receivers, let's talk about Deebo Samuel. Deebo Samuel really didn't win much in one-on-ones. He had 2 one-on-one routes. One was against Tariq Castro Fields, and Deebo Samuel did not make the play on that play. It's not that he didn't make the play, it's just he was very well covered in completion. Then he went up against Charvarius Ward and just locked him down. It was great coverage, and the ball could not really ball was just not there because of the great coverage. So Samuel, the one thing about him so far, he's failed to separate a lot in from cornerbacks in camp, no matter who it is, be it Mosley, be it Ward, or even Castro Fields in this case. And so that's something to look forward to. Keep going in as we get is this our 4th bot of the day? Let's put her or him or whatever in the block list as well. Continuing on, though, with the wide receivers, Jawan Jennings, bounce back day from Jawan Jennings. He had a great route on Dante Johnson. His route running hasn't necessarily been a problem in one-on-ones. Had a great route in Dante Johnson and made the catch. He hasn't made a catch, really, in one-on-ones recently. He's been dropping a bunch of passes, but finally, not a drop today against Dante Johnson. He whooped him on that route. Great play by Jawan Jennings. Then in one-on-ones, 30-yard catch from Nate Sudfeld, 25-yard catch in traffic from Nate Sudfeld as well. Didn't drop either of them. seemed to have a couple of concentration drops early, but Jawan Jennings is that guy right now. He's looking good, and Jawan Jennings, right. I mean, he's had a stronghold on wide receiver 3, but it's great to see him have a bounce back day because he's been Mr. Reliable for the 49ers. And if they're at least early, if Trey Lance is looking to throw short compared to the intermediate and deep, Jawan Jennings might be heavily featured alongside George Kittle. So great to see Jawan Jennings have that day as we find another bot. Oh my God, Jesus Christ! It's all right. Let's block it again as we get that out of here. Ooh, come on, come on. Come on. All right, there we go. Sorry about that, guys. But those were the top 3 receivers, right? And then Raven McLeod. Raven McLeod personally continues to impress me. When you talk about Raven McLeod, he's small. I'm not gonna front. He's small. He's a smaller receiver than I expected, but he's super shifty. He's super quick. He's explosive for sure with the acceleration. He's quick with the acceleration, and he's small, and he's won a couple of routes. And I know he got held in one-on-ones. He had a good route against Tariq Castro Fields, but Castro Fields had good coverage. And then on the second play, he just had a great break against Castro Fields and won that route. So overall, a good day for Raven McLeod, who also saw action in the passing game. Great route on Charvarius Ward, that stick China route, as we mentioned earlier, for a 25-yard gain, and then also I believe had one other catch. So good day for Raven McLeod. He continues to have good days after his injury earlier, I believe last week. He continues to have good days, and he should fight for targets early on. Danny Gray continues to struggle with separation. That's one thing that he needs to kind of get a little better at with his route running, is just being able to separate. Because what good is deep speed if you can't really utilize it to its full strength? Diameter Lenore locked him down on a one-on-one route, and I believe that was the only one-on-one route that I recorded of Danny Gray today. He just hasn't really impressed in the non-deep game with his route running. He had a really good day, I believe, on Wednesday. He had 3 catches overall, including the 2, or it was Tuesday or Wednesday, one of the 2, where he burned Ambry Thomas twice and then caught a 12-yard slant. His hands seem pretty good. It's just his route running needs to be more consistent. He needs to be able to win more, and I think that that'll come with a little more strength and a better release package overall. So those are the 2 things for Danny Gray. He just needs to win a little more. It's not that he has disappointed. He's a 3rd-round rookie, but overall, he hasn't separated as much as his speed would indicate. Talking about some of the underrated guys, let's start with Malik Turner. Malik Turner had a good day today. He beat Samuel Womack in a one-on-one. It was a good coverage, great coverage. Just Malik Turner made a better catch on the play. Good play there. And then he beat Tariq Castro Fields, who held him on a route as well. And then he had one drop, obviously, from Trey Lance. The one drop that Trey Lance had was Malik Turner. The ball went through his hands, but overall, Malik Turner has had a pretty strong training camp. He seems to be the favorite at the moment for wide receiver 6. However, there's another guy that I got to mention, and that's Tay Martin. Tay Martin, the undrafted rookie out of Oklahoma State, and don't confuse him with one of the Macks. Taysier Mack obviously got cut. Austin Mack, we'll get to him in a minute, but Tay Martin, good day overall for Tay Martin after a strong day the other day. He had beaten Jimmy Ward the other day, and he also beat Diameter Lenore on the other day. Today, Tay Martin, he went up against Quantrez Knight on a route, and then he went up against Lenore, beat Lenore again. His release package is just great, and his route running is really crisp. He has good hands, great release package, and a crisp route running. I wouldn't be surprised if he also potentially had that receiver 6 spot if the 49ers carry 6 receivers, that is. So good day for Tay Martin. He also had a 12-yard catch during scrimmage from Brock Purdy. Tay Martin today, and on Wednesday, has been pretty strong. I really like what I've seen from the rookie. Going on to some other receivers, let's finish today off with Austin Mack. Austin Mack, one-on-ones. He ran good routes and dropped 2 passes. He beat Tariq Castro Fields on one route and dropped the pass. And then on the other one, he would beat Darquez Denard on a route and just dropped the pass again. Austin Mack, those hands were not great during the one-on-one play, but he did have 2 catches during the scrimmage section. But, the 49ers have had a drop issue to start training camp, which has not been good. One of the guys who dropped a pass was Taysier Mack. He bobbled a pass that ended up being an interception, returned to the end zone for a touchdown on Wednesday, and he was cut today. So remember, drops have been an issue. I don't think the 49ers are entirely happy that they have to deal with drop issues again in 2022 after dealing with them in 2021. And with Trey Lance, a rookie quarterback, you don't want those issues popping up again. And so be on the lookout because Austin Mack had 2 drop passes today, and there have just been a number of receivers that have dropped passes overall. I think that's pretty much it for the receivers. So we can go on ahead to the tight ends. I'll get to the tight ends. I'll get to the offensive line. Then I'll answer the rest of your questions in the chat before going on to the defense. Tight ends wise, George Kittle returned. Remember, he was off on Wednesday. He had a vet day, and George Kittle has been pretty much a reliable target. I don't know exactly how many catches he had today. If we're fully thinking about it, I don't know if he was really. He had, I think, maybe 2 or 3 catches overall today. They were short passes. They were 5 to 10-yard passes from Trey Lance in the flat, over the middle. It was like short plays for George Kittle, and I think that that's going to be his role in 2022. Yeah, on Wednesday, I had spoken about George Kittle and how George Kittle might have to face an adjustment period in a way with Trey Lance because remember, George Kittle thrives over the middle, but Trey Lance doesn't necessarily do that as well. He kind of struggles a lot more around the middle, and so that's George Kittle's game where he kind of has to now get adjusted. So the 2 places where I can see George Kittle getting a lot of action, short, and then the kind of the crosser routes that go for 15, 20 yards. You saw a couple of those plays on Wednesday, I believe, from Trey Lance to George Kittle, but today you saw a couple of the shorter plays, a 5-yard throw to the flat. I think there was another 10 or 7 or 10-yard throw somewhere around there. And so Kittle will probably not see as big of an increase in volume as people expect, but I still think that Kittle has a valuable role, especially early, because the Trey Lance, if he isn't necessarily as comfortable throwing the ball to the other sections of the field, you might see him try and target a guy like Kittle, who has been Mr. Reliable in a way on certain plays. So that's something to monitor. But George Kittle, I think he's one of the guys who needs to be in an adjustment period. But when we talk about the tight ends, I'm not really thinking about tight end 1 because tight end 1 is locked. I'm thinking about tight end 2. Today, who caught a couple of passes? Troy Fumagalli. Fumagalli has caught a couple of passes over the last 2 days now, and I haven't necessarily seen too much from him in terms of speed, but he's been a reliable guy with his hands, and he might be a guy that the 49ers consider at tight end number 3. Tanner Hudson is another guy who seemed like he got a little bit of volume as well. Remember, he was the one who got stripped on the interception today, and then he got a ball knocked out of him, which was a fumble by Leon O'Neal the other day. So I don't know exactly how reliable the 49ers believe his hands are, but Tanner Hudson maybe is another guy that could be in the mix, as well as Tyler Kroft. When you talk, though, about tight end 2 and the snaps, hopefully the camera – okay, there we go. When you talk about tight end 2 and not Tyler Kroft, and who's behind George Kittle, it's actually been the incumbent, Ross Dwelley. Ross Dwelley today, at least in scrimmage, saw tight end 2 reps behind George Kittle with Nate Sudfeld to start at least. And then Dwelley also had his first catch. The 49ers quarterbacks just don't target Dwelley during scrimmage. They targeted him today. He had his first catch. He's not a blocking tight end. That's pretty clear, obviously. And the 49ers might covet a blocking tight end, given George Kittle and his talents and wanting to get him out in the field a little more rather than having him block a lot more. And so that might be a thing. But Troy Fumagalli, Tanner Hudson, and Ross Dwelley, those were the 3 names really that popped out a little bit today. Not really Tyler Kroft, who didn't have a catch during 11-on-11s. All right, now let's get to the offensive line because this is the group that I'm most excited to talk about in 2020, or not in 2022. Well, yeah, in 2022, but also today. When you talk about the offensive line, let's get this up. Perfect. All right, the offensive line looked really good today. In pass protection, especially 0 sacks allowed. And this is all in comparison to the days before. The offensive line looked really good today, and the offensive line obviously has struggled at times before, right? Because pass protection, They've allowed a lot of pressure. Trey Lance has kind of had to use his feet. But first team offensive line was finally out there today. You saw Daniel Brunskill was the starting center, but you saw Mike McGlinchey out there at right tackle. You saw Trent Williams out there at left tackle, and then the two guards obviously remained the same. So it was a good sight to see all five of those offensive linemen out there today. And the first team offensive line definitely looked like they were pretty strong today. Like I said, 0 sacks. I thought the run blocking was also fairly solid, but pass protection was really good. We already know that the tackles are the best two offensive linemen on the roster. So let's first talk about the guards. Spencer Burford and Aaron Banks both look really good today. When we were talking about like earlier in the week, the one thing that I said about Aaron Banks that I saw a little bit of struggles from him because both of them in a way have had up and down camps. Aaron Banks, though, the one thing I said, the main comment I said was that he struggles to anchor in one-on-ones. What do I mean that what do I mean by that? When he's getting power rushed, he struggles to he struggled to hold down and set his feet and push back in a way. That wasn't the case today, though. Aaron Banks learned from whatever that was on Monday and anchored really well today. In addition, he's the guard, right? He faced the defender to the outside. The outside is where you want to face your defender, so it takes longer to get to the quarterback from the edge. He faced the defender to the outside, and he was stuck there. He just he didn't really allow many pressures at all. So Aaron Banks, good day today in pass protection, as well as Spencer Burford, whose strength definitely is shown, right? Both are pretty strong players, especially Burford for his size. And so it's a pleasant surprise to see both of them playing well together. And really, I talked about cohesion, not only with the center, but also with the tackles. Both of the tackles have been limited in earlier practices. Today, they played in full on the outside. And while other players might not have been there, those two were there. And so it was very important. And you could see the cohesion between at least the guards and the tackles. The center continues to change, but I thought the center also played well today. I think everybody's just getting a little more acclimated to each other, be it Brunskill or be it Brendel. I thought the protection over the middle was pretty good today as well. And they both each had some nice moments in run blocking as well. So that's something to say. The only issue right now at center is snapping. Daniel Brunskill just can't snap the ball at times. It's frustrating to see at times because you obviously understand that Daniel Brunskill is a talent. I think he's underrated as an offensive lineman, but he had snap issues last week, had a pretty good day, I believe, on Tuesday of this week when he was the starter, and then snap issues returned today when he was the starting one. And so to me, if Daniel Brunskill can't snap, the center battle might be over before it even starts because that's the main part of a center. And I understand, right, why Brunskill right now is struggling to snap. He isn't a center. He isn't a true center. He's a guy who's played guard. He hasn't snapped consistently like Jake Brendel has for the entirety of his career, dating back to his UCLA days. Jake Brendel is a better snapper right now, and that might honestly ultimately say who the center battle ends up being. And the other point that I want to mention, Chris Forster yesterday during the press conferences raved about Jake Brendel. It appears that the offensive line coach Chris Forster prefers Jake Brendel, while other people, maybe Kyle Shanahan, prefers Daniel Brunskill. So it's very interesting to see how this battle turns out, but it might not even be a true battle if Brunskill can't snap. I hope he continues to develop it, and I hope that it doesn't become an issue over the last couple of days of camp because that was one thing initially for practice today. When you talk about when you talk about the rest of the offensive line, I mean, Trent Williams was Trent Williams. I remember today there was a play where the defensive line stunted. Williams needed to pick up the defensive lineman and Alex Barrett, who's going to have a free line to the quarterback. He picked him up. Great concentration, and Trey Lance was able to make his throw. So overall, good day for the offensive line. This was their best day by far. I still want to see a little more with run blocking. I think the run blocking kind of part is a little more on the running backs today than the offensive linemen, but I do want to try and see some bigger holes created so that, especially on the inside, so that those runs can go off for more than 1 to 2 to 3 yards, more into that 4 and 5 yard range, and the offensive running game can be more efficient, easing the burden on a guy like Trey Lance coming into his sophomore season. All right, guys, now I'm going to go over all the questions that I haven't gone over yet, and then I'll get to the defense. Webhut Master asks, is the Lance and Kittle dynamic developing? I think it's developing. I still think that there is a little bit to do there, just because both of them have to understand each other's tendencies, which are different from Garoppolo's tendencies as a quarterback, right? So I think that that's still the period. But remember, I think Kittle and Lance have practiced a little bit more than a guy like Debo and Lance. So if you're talking about dynamic developing, I think Debo and Lance is the bigger question at the moment. I'm not worried about either. Let's make it clear. I'm not worried about either, but just talking about what I've seen, I'm fine with the Lance Kittle one. I think that that'll be there and Kittle will be utilized well this year. It's just, it might not be the 1,300-yard season that some people might expect. I think it will be having to be toned down a bit. And I don't know if he or Debo will be like who eclipses each other on the depth chart, right? They're the top three targets in Ayuk, Samuel, and Kittle. It's very interesting who will eclipse each other on the depth chart. Travis here asks, any guess on the preseason game plans? Kyle Shanahan, I I think at least Kyle Shanahan is looking to be conservative more, especially when you see the amount of veteran rest days that he's handed out this camp, and also see how he's trying to ease players in. I don't think you'll see a lot of the starters play in preseason, at least early on. I think that it will be more of an eased in period. Although he might want to see how does Trey Lance factor against other live NFL defenses and things like that. So I'm assuming it's going to be a conservative plan as opposed to an aggressive plan and trying to get a bunch of install in, like trying to utilize a bunch of the install that was complete on Tuesday overall through preseason. But again, who knows, right? Last year we saw interesting things. We saw the quarterbacks even switch during like Garoppolo and Lance even going in the same drive. So it'll be interesting to see, and I still think it'll be fairly conservative. Here we got Antonio Kidd saying the offensive line is the goal to our success. I don't think that that's a wrong statement at all. I mean, the offensive line is going to hold up, and in many cases, we've seen the offensive line be the difference between a Super Bowl and not. So it's good that our offensive line is working. Uh, Here we see that the Niners just signed Willie Snead. Yeah, I saw that report. It's interesting. I still think that he is more of a body, right? Because other people have been acclimated. And I still, like I said, there are two names that stand out the most so far in Tay Martin and in Malik Turner. We'll see who gets or we'll see even right now if there is a sixth receiver spot. Normally they carry six, but overall, yeah, it's a fine signing. He looked pretty okay out there today without a live defense in his workout. So fine signing here. I think it's more so depth because Marcus Johnson is recovering from concussion protocol. Chris saying, gonna listen to your stream while I put the rest of my brain on auto tune. Thank you, Chris, for tuning in. Kali here with a question. Is the move the ball period similar to the 2-minute drill? How does Trey look in handling the offense in those exercises? No, it's not similar. They haven't really had 2-minute drill. It's in the move the ball period. It's been a lot of huddle and like it's been a lot slower. And how does Trey look handling the offense in those exercises? It's been too minimal, in my opinion, to really gauge. Obviously, they haven't had too many move the ball periods. I think they've literally had like 2 or 3 series in total. Some today and some on Tuesday of move the ball. So I'll look and see more, and I'm very interested to see how the 2-minute drill works because there hasn't been too much of that type of action either yet. All right, continuing. Was Ayuk ever targeted by Lance this practice? I don't believe so, which is obviously interesting given their connection. But I don't think Ayuk and Lance had a connection during this practice, nor did they have a target during this practice. I can go back and look, but at the moment, just off the top of my head, the answer is no, not to Ayuk this practice. T-Man here asks, are we going to sign Willie Snead? I think I'm sure you probably know by now, but yeah, Willie Snead is a part of the team. All right, continuing with the questions. Ronnie Montoya asks, does the team fill Jordan Matthews' spot with the extra wide receiver, lineman, or running back? I think, yeah, so one of the spots was filled by Willie Snead, but I think that's Taysier or Mack's spot, who was waived. Remember, Jordan Matthews goes on IR, so I don't think an extra receiver will fill that spot. It'll probably be an offensive lineman. Oh, actually, it's interesting because Jalen Moore is out as well. I think it'll probably be one of those offensive tackles. We're working out 3 of them today. It'll probably be one of those. He asks again, when does the team have to make roster cuts? August 30th. After preseason. Preseason, our last game for us is August 25th. August 30th is cut down day. T-Man brings up that there have been no Trey Lance picks since Monday. I think that's the most promising factor. That is true. Lance has not thrown a pick since day 5. And so the last 3 practices have been clean without any picks. I understand the numbers necessarily haven't popped off the page, but no picks since Monday. That is correct. Emiliano says, thank you for the coverage. Thank you so much. And all of you, honestly, all of you so far in the chat, thank you so much for just tuning in and appreciating what I put out. I'm just going to continue to work and hopefully you guys enjoy it. Do you think Kyle might have told Trey to overthrow receivers when they are covered deep to try on interference? This could be the case. I haven't necessarily seen like them specifically talking about it. And I'm not blaming Trey always during these overthrows, right? Because obviously when you overthrow it, you're giving your receiver a chance, but you mostly are just like, maybe it's just because he can't see anybody else. You're giving your receiver a chance, but it's likely or than not that it's an incompletion. It's just normally, obviously, on these deep throws, when you have a Deebo Samuel or a Brandon Ayuk, you normally want to give them more of a chance by getting it closer. So it's that. I also think he's just working on fine-tuning the accuracy where Deebo Samuel's supposed to be, and that's where the connection has to build a little more. Figuring out where the what the receiver's tendency are, where the receiver wants the ball, and working through that, so that you don't necessarily have to worry about where you're going to locate the ball. You kind of already know and are just waiting for the receiver to make that play. Continuing, Big Mike. I haven't seen anyone mention 6th-round offensive lineman Zakel. So Zakel has been more of a developmental project. He did struggle a little bit during one-on-ones the other day, and he has been primarily a third-team guy. Keaton Sutherland took his spot on the second team. He's the second-team right guard. Poe is the second-team left guard. Zakel is primarily played on third team. Emiliano mentions that Anthony Lynn was quick to mention Jordan Mason in his position coach interview yesterday, says he was competing, and so the jump has to be encouraging. I definitely think Jordan Mason is in competition for the RB4 spot because he's looked good in camp. He's looked like an NFL level running back, and it just depends. Do the 49ers implement roster politics, which they haven't necessarily done before, and maybe trying to stash him on the squad? Or do they think that they can keep another guy over him? And do they like it? It could depend on that, or it could just depend on play. And so that will be a very interesting battle to keep looking forward to as camp continues. Coach Cruz asked, how did Thomas look today? He seems like he struggled in camp. It's interesting. Thomas gave up catches today, a couple of deep ones, a 30-yard play. He was the guy in coverage on a 30-yard catch to Juwan Jennings, and then he was also the guy in coverage on another throw. I will pull that up real quick. On a 20-yard catch from Nate Sudfeld, or 20-yard play from Sudfeld to Brandon Ayuk. Thomas has gone, he's been so inconsistent really in camp. That's why he got demoted to third team. I honestly think Kadar Holman might even have a better camp so far than him. But overall, Thomas, the problem has been he's had good days, he's had bad days. And he really just hasn't been able to pile 2 good days in a row. Today, he was playing a ton of soft coverage, even though the receivers that he was around, like Juwan Jennings isn't necessarily a burner, right? But he was playing soft coverage. And so when you're playing 7 to 10 yards off, maybe 5 to 7 yards off, it's easier for the receiver to make a cut inside and get a 15, 20, 30-yard catch because Thomas's closing speed isn't necessarily the best. And also when you have safeties, they might just be too late because it's that relationship has to develop, right? The safety has to know when the cornerback is kind of giving in for the safety to make the play. And so that relationship is well there. But overall, Thomas, not the best camp so far. Continuing. Niners Warriors says last year Bruce Arians was critical about Tanner Hudson. He needs to block somebody. Anybody, have you seen his blocking at all? Is it that bad? He seems to have good hands. He does have good hands. I haven't really focused too much on his blocking, remember, because it hasn't been too physical. I can tell you, though, he did have a pancake today. I know Brad Graham obviously VSF Niners. He pointed that out to me. Tanner Hudson did have a pancake today. It was on a rush of like 2 yards still. It wasn't too much, but Hudson did have a pancake today. Did they try out the Jets XQB James Morgan? Yes, they do. I was watching the workout. Morgan was out there. He was actually the one throwing passes to Willie Snead and an unknown wide receiver as well. I didn't really see that wide receiver, so I didn't notice or recognize the wide receiver, and it wasn't reported who it was. So that's another thing. All right, let's continue on with the defense, and then we'll get on out of here. Defensive line today, no Ark Armstead, no Javon Kinlaw, or no Nick Bosa in team drills as well. Nick Bosa played for like one series and then did not play in team drills for the rest of the day. So defensive line was undermanned today. Kevin Givens got the start. The starting defensive line was Givens, Omenahue, Bosa, and I think it was Alex Barrett on the inside as well. Hyder got the start in walkthroughs over Barrett, and you saw Ebucom as well in there as well. So again, undermanned. So you saw different looks in there. The interesting thing, the biggest thing to point out from the defensive line today on a day with 0 sacks against the first team defense, Drake Jackson, he got some run with the ones today, which was a nice sight to see. He got some run with he got like a little bit of run with the ones the other day as well. He's been slowly easing into some reps with the ones. He is a guy, like I've said, who is impressed in camp so far. The coaches have also said he's impressed in camp. But it is interesting to see no Javon Kinlaw today because yesterday was a rest day. This is the second time the 49ers have done this. They, what was it? Sunday was a rest day for the 49ers and no practice practice was on Monday. No Javon Kinlaw there either. And today, no Javon Kinlaw. It's not on Kinlaw at all. That I hope nobody thinks I'm insinuating that. But the 49ers did mention yesterday they were going to take it very easy with Javon Kinlaw. But the one thing I want to see from him is improving his pass rushing technique, like defensive coordinator D'Amico Ryan said, because once he can get that pass rushing acumen in, he's going to be a great force. But Kinlaw has looked good. He was not there today, which did surprise me a little bit. But again, it's the 49ers easing him in so that no re-aggravation occurs of his injury. Other things about the defensive line today. Let's see. Do we got rotations? We do. Anything other than that important? Jordan Willis did also get first team reps today. He was sometimes opposite of Omenahue. In walkthroughs, it was Bosa and Ebucom on the outside, and then Willis and Omenahue were the next two up. So that is another interesting to see. Thing to see. Kerry Hyder continues to get a significant amount of run with the ones and the twos. He hasn't really looked impressive yet. So it's interesting that he continues to get that type of run, but maybe it's just because of the lack of depth on the interior specifically, because Kem DJ is there, but you've got guys like Akeem Spence, who did also get run with the ones. The newly signed defensive tackle Akeem Spence got run with the ones today as well. So you saw a lot of mixing and matching with the top guys on that defensive line not playing in team drills and scrimmage. So that was a very interesting sight to see. Moving on to the linebackers. The linebackers were good today again. Again, the linebackers don't necessarily have splash plays, right? These are linebackers we're talking about where if it's not an interception, you don't necessarily call it a splash play. But the one thing that these linebackers are really good at doing is detecting the screen passes. The linebackers today had a couple of very good plays on some of the screen passes. Really just cut it down to 0 2 yards, and they're continuously able to breach the gap and get to the running backs. Fred Warner was there on the first play of scrimmage. It was a 3-yard drop off to Elijah Mitchell. So it was another nice play by the linebackers. Something else to mention: Oren Burks getting run with the ones. He's the first guy up. It's not Demetrius Flanagan-Fouts, and it's not Curtis Robinson, who are the two guys right now, in my opinion, competing for defensive linebacker number 5. And so those are the Oren Burks got in with the ones. He spent some time there as well. He had a nice play on Wednesday, and so that was interesting to see that he got time with the ones. Dre Greenlaw continues to be that guy. When I talk about that guy, he continues to be the nickel In nickel packages, he continues to be the linebacker on the field. He had a nice play in coverage today, as did Aziz Al-Shire. So good 2 plays there by the 2 linebackers. And overall, the backups, Segun Olabi, interception today. That was the highlight of a linebacker day. But they continue to breach the gaps well, stop the run game well, and also be active in the screen game as well. So great day for the linebackers. And then the last group of the day, we've got to talk about the secondary. Secondary was lockdown today, honestly. Like, I understand that the offense was moving, but the offense was moving on short plays because deep down the field and in the intermediate range for a good portion of the day, at least with the first team defense, the secondary was good. When you talk about the secondary, Travarius Ward, obviously, a good solid day. Emmanuel Mosley locked down Debo Samuel during the time that they were on him. And Ward had a good rep, right, in one-on-ones against Debo Samuel. Diamador Lenore, good day. He had a great day on Wednesday. He had an interception. He won reps in one-on-ones and then a PBU as well. So a strong day for Diamador Lenore on Wednesday. Had a pretty solid day today. He did give up a catch to Brandon Ayuk in one-on-ones as well as Tay Martin, but he had a good rep on the speedy Danny Gray. And given his lack of deep end speed compared to a guy like Danny Gray, it's great to see him win that rep. And then today in coverage as well, Diamador Lenore wasn't really targeted too much. He was there on a deep play, the Ray McLeod deep throw from Nate Sudfeld that turned incomplete. Lenore was step in coverage. So it's a good sign to see that the 49ers finally have some really quality depth at the cornerback position. And then Tariq Castro-Fields continues to look the part. He was solid in the one-on-one drills as well, obviously where defensive backs are at a disadvantage. And then he continued to play well during scrimmage as well. So good day for Tariq Castro-Fields as well. The top 4 cornerbacks, honestly, on this team are looking pretty good. As for the slot, Samuel Womack, Darqueze Dennard continues split reps with the ones. Dennard had been the one for a majority of practice or majority of the time. Dante Johnson took the 1 reps on Saturday, and then Samuel Womack took the 1 reps on Wednesday. Today, both of them were there and they split time with the ones. Very interesting sight because they might be easing Samuel Womack into that starting role so that they save a roster spot because they don't necessarily have to carry Darqueze Dennard on the 53-man roster initially. So it's cool to see Samuel Womack definitely get run with the ones. Right now, he could project as a slot corner. I think either of them could be there. But like I said earlier, it might just be Jimmy Ward who ends up winning that slot corner spot. And now let's talk about Jimmy Ward because Ward, I don't think, went up against Ayuk today in the one-on-one drills. I didn't really see him too much in the one-on-one drills, but overall, Ward has been in a versatile amount of positions. He's been near the box, he's been in the slot, and he's been over the top in different packages. I think Ward is a centerpiece of this defense now, and so Jimmy Ward, I think, is going to be utilized very heavily in different roles this year, just like he has been over the last 2 years, and continue his play over the last 2 years because he's a stout tackler. That's why they want him near the line because they kind of trust him more than the other safeties. And so it'll be interesting to see what Jimmy Ward's exact role is in 2022. As for Tarvarius Moore, he continues to be sprinkled in with the ones at times. It was obviously more so Talanoa Hufanga who gets a majority of the reps, who also had a pretty cool rep in there. Like the tight ends and defensive safeties and stuff had a different kind of one-on-one session today. Hufanga had a good rep against George Kittle, getting behind him. But like this safety rotation is going to be very interesting to see how it essentially boils out. But overall, pretty good day for the defense. Despite the amount of completions, they still were able to kind of stop the 49ers from getting a ton of first downs. It's not like the 49ers were continuously just moving the ball and getting first downs. They were completing passes. It's just they were short of the chains at times as well. So good job by the defense. This defense clearly is the better side of the football field, but an optimistic day overall for the 49ers because the quarterbacks were able to complete passes at a higher rate than they had been in regular camp. The offensive line looked the best it had, and obviously without some of the top players on defense, but it just shows how exciting tomorrow's practice is going to be, where I'm going to be here. My co-host Marco is going to be here, and we're going to break the entire thing down. So before I go, got to say thank you and shout out to everybody who stayed in the chat. Thank you guys so much for tuning in for this breakdown. And I will probably be on Spaces as well later today. Be sure to check out my work at 49ers Web Zone, writing a ton of articles. I write down the entire 11 on 11 breakdown every single day. So if you guys missed that in the early part of today's show, be sure to check it out there, as well as check out the work that I put on offense and defense breakdowns. If I missed any of the work that I talked about here, I put it on over there. And I talk about the one-on-ones as well. So be sure to check that work out. Be sure to subscribe to this channel so you guys don't miss out on the content. We're continuously putting out content, me and my co-host and all of the lovely guests that I bring on the show. And obviously, if you guys didn't see it, be sure to check out my show yesterday with not only Sunil, but also Grant Cohn and my co-host Marco. That's all for today, guys. Thank you guys so much for tuning in the chat. I will catch you guys tomorrow with another great stream. Peace.